take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Wednesday, September 16th, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Probably here. Welcome to the show. It's been a pretty hectic day for me. I just barely got some lunch in me because I spent almost all the afternoon today in a vigorous debate with 3 or 4 people on the Twitterverse who are against the Responsible Ohio proposal. And it's not like I'm debating, Project Sam, Kevin Sabet, the drug czar, any of those people that you'd expect to be against legalization. But I'm debating against people who claim to be for legalization. Just not this one. Not this legalization. Oh, no, we can't accept this legalization because not enough growers will get rich. So everybody needs to remain a criminal for another year at least, probably another 5 years. We're going to talk a little bit about that today in my radical rant because I've got to get some stuff off my chest after this past 3 or 4 hours, where I ask the question, why the reverence for the illegal weed dealer? This seems to be a consistent thing in the cannabis community, this reverence for illegal growers and dealers. We're going to punch a couple holes in that in the Radical Rant today. Also coming up on the show today, it's Hemp Day Hump Day, so we've got Doug Fine's Hemp Day Hump Day update. He'll tell us what's happening all across the United States in the world of industrial hemp. We'll also take your calls at 84-420 radio if you've got some hemp questions for Doug Fine, one of America's leading experts on industrial hemp. Also coming up on the show, in drug war data mining, we're going to take a look at some fascinating new science that was just a throwaway line in the USA Today show Mr. Robot. But it turns out scientists actually are figuring out how to cultivate THC from yeast. Yeah, THC from yeast, folks. That's pretty amazing development. We'll tell you about that in drug war data mining. Also on the show today, in Behind the Headlines, we go back to the state of New Jersey, where some very distraught parents have lost their 3rd court appeal to try to deliver CBD oil to their epileptic daughter while she is in school. Without it, she cannot concentrate. She cannot take the classes. She loses time and gets behind the rest of the students. A 3rd court now has said no, they can't bring non-intoxicating CBD oil to school. But before we get to all of that, we do the 420 radio news. And in the headlines today, Congressman Ted Lieu and Justin Amash have introduced a bill to end the DEA's program of pulling weeds in the state forests. We've got Snoop Dogg weighing in on today's Colorado tax holiday, plus some very interesting milestone that we've passed in Colorado marijuana taxation. We've got the first data on Portland, Oregon's retail marijuana stores and estimates at how much revenue they'll bring in to the Beaver State. We've got the Republican candidates getting ready to debate today in California, and Rand Paul is calling out Chris Christie over his anti-marijuana stance. Toledo, Ohio has voted for decriminalization of marijuana, and UFC's women's star Ronda Rousey speaks out on Nick Diaz's 5-year suspension for failing a marijuana metabolites test. All that coming up, plus your calls in hour 2. Stick around.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Herb Thrasher, and I've got a bong, and you're listening to 420 Radio.
Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabis 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp.
NewEraCPAs.com. With years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com. Expand your horizons and join us every Wednesday night for Gordon Green's Music Planet. You'll hear an eclectic mix of music from all around the world. Catch the first show of the month for an intro to world music. It's Gordon Green's Music Planet Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific with replays weekends at midnight on 420radio.org.
As a police officer, I walked the beat, served on the Vice Squad and SWAT team, and became an expert on drug addiction. I saw firsthand the effects of Ohio's destructive marijuana laws. Simply put, they don't work. Ohio spends over $100 million each year on this failed effort. It's time for marijuana reform, so law enforcement can spend their time cracking down on real criminals and making Ohio a safer place for our families. Vote yes on 3.
It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Replays of 420 Radio News are embeddable and shareable from our SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/RadicalRuss. Now, the marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
This is your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, September 16th, 2015. Congressman Ted Lieu of California and Justin Amash of Michigan introduced a bill in the U.S. House of Representatives on Wednesday that would eliminate the Drug Enforcement Administration's Domestic Cannabis Eradication and Suppression Program. The DEA program distributes funds to state and local law enforcement agencies for the purpose of locating and destroying marijuana cultivation sites. The proposed bill would prohibit federal funds from being distributed to federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies for any purpose pertaining to the program or any substantially similar program. No state has ever generated more tax revenue from marijuana than alcohol until now. The Colorado Department of Revenue, according to recently released figures, just brought in $70 million in taxes relating to marijuana, compared to less than $42 million for alcohol taxes over the course of a year. Colorado suspended tax collections on marijuana for 1 day today, and pot cultivation operations say the tax holiday is saving them tens of thousands of dollars behind the scenes. Rapper Snoop Dogg even weighed in on the tax holiday.
What up, Colorado? It's your boy, Big Snoop Dogg, and I want to send a special shout out to all of my fans and friends and everyone from Colorado for being one of the first states in our great country to pave the way for legalizing medical and recreational marijuana. In honor of it being an incredible year for the movement, I would like to wish you a happy tax holiday this September 16th. I love seeing the positive impact of the cannabis business in your beautiful state. The job creation for so many people, crime dropping for safer neighborhoods, and raising to date over $100 million in tax revenue for the state and education. As we celebrate this special one-time holiday, let's stay safe and be responsible. And for those of you from out of state, remember that recreational use is for 21 and over. Have fun today and go green. Happy tax holiday.
Portland wants to charge retail marijuana stores up to $3,750 to open their doors. Fees city officials say will help recoup costs associated with regulating the industry. With $890,000 in estimated annual expenses, the hefty fees proposed on marijuana businesses are meant to offset the city's costs, officials said. So how many marijuana stores, processors, wholesalers, and dispensaries does the city expect? Try 480, according to projections provided to the Oregonian. If the city council approves the proposed fees and businesses apply at the expected rates, Portland could bring in $1.4 million per year. The 15 leading Republican candidates for president have arrived in California just as the state closes in on a fully legal regime for medical marijuana. Earlier this month in New Hampshire, Governor Chris Christie told an audience that current experiments with legal marijuana were encouraging, quote, lawlessness, end quote, and needed to end. Christie said that his DEA would raid the legal pot industry in the West, saying, quote, seize their money, seize their product, close their stores, end quote. In an interview, Senator Rand Paul said that Christie's idea of raiding currently legal businesses puts him, quote, on the wrong side of history and wasn't even workable. Quote, most Americans are not with him, and it's not going to sit well with a lot of conservatives and libertarians. I mean, is he going to send federal troops in to enforce medical marijuana laws? End quote. Toledo residents voted overwhelmingly in favor of a citizen-led initiative to abolish penalties in city law for possession and cultivation of marijuana on Tuesday, 2 months before the state's voters will decide an amendment that would fully legalize the sale and use of marijuana in Ohio. With 226 precincts reporting, the vote was 11,197 to 4,760. If it is enforced as written, people could still be prosecuted for possession of marijuana, but would not be jailed or fined for amounts up to 200 grams. UFC women's bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey, the company's top star and a training partner of Nick Diaz, addressed the testing for marijuana that got Diaz suspended for 5 years at a recent press conference, saying, quote, it's so not right for him to be suspended 5 years for marijuana. It's so unfair that if one person tests for steroids that could actually hurt a person, they get a slap on the wrist, end quote. This has been your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, September 16th, 2015. I'm Russ Belville.
Get the latest updates on the Russ Belville Show by following Radical Russ on Twitter and liking the Russ Belville Show on Facebook.
Oregon has joined Washington and Colorado in legalizing marijuana. We're Portland NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws chapter in Portland, Oregon. Join us as we celebrate the launch of an exciting new era in marijuana freedom in Oregon. Our job has just begun. Powerful interests want to white out the most important portions of Oregon's legalization law. By joining Portland NORML, you add your voice to the thousands who voted for Measure 91 and want it to be implemented as written. The people have spoken. Now it is time for the legislature to obey the will of the people. Find out more about Portland NORML at portlandnormal.org. Attend our monthly membership meetings on the fourth Saturday of the month. See our website for more details. Portland NORML, ensuring responsible adult marijuana consumers are afforded the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as beer drinkers.
NORML stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Today in Behind the Headlines, we take a look at NewJersey.com, where the headline is Mother Can't Bring Medical Marijuana to Her Child at School. It's a story we've been covering for a while now at 420 Radio, and it has to do with the Barber family of Maple Shade, New Jersey. The mother of the teenage girl, she has terrible, terrible epilepsy, the teenage girl. Her name is Jenny. And the parents have been trying to get permission to bring cannabis oil to her to help control her seizures. Now, keep in mind, New Jersey is a medical marijuana state. Not much of one, but it's a medical marijuana state. And they've gone through all the hoops necessary to get their minor child a medical marijuana card. And they've gone through all the hoops to get the CBD oil legally. And yet they are going to be unable to maintain the dosing schedule necessary for little Jenny Barber because of the stupid federal prohibition against marijuana. Basically, what's happening here is that she receives this cannabis oil to help control her seizures. She has hundreds of seizures a day, and since she's been using the cannabis oil, her seizures have all but been eliminated. So she has to take this 4 times a day. They give it to her in the morning, want to give it to her at lunch, give it to her in the evening, and give it to her before she goes to bed. The problem is she can't get that lunchtime dose while she's at school. Now, she's 16 years old, keep in mind. She's 16, but nowhere near that in developmental age, just because of the severe epilepsy that's, kept her basically in a childlike state. But because they can't get the cannabis oil to her at school, she has to only do half days at school, or have to take her off campus to be able to administer it to her at home, which of course disrupts her routine. And she's kind of, like some autistic kids, the real important thing for them is routine, keep the routine. And so this breaks her routine. And they have done everything they can to try to compromise with the school district in this case. First of all, we're talking about CBD oil, right? We're talking about a non-psychoactive medicinal form of marijuana that's not smoked. There's no possibility whatsoever this girl is getting high. There's no possibility whatsoever that if for some reason some other kid got a hold of this CBD oil, that kid would get high. It's useless for getting high. And yet still the school board is fighting them on this. And now a third appeals judge has said, nope, you can't bring the oil to her at school. Now, they had tried the compromise. They said, look, we don't even want to give it to her. I mean, we'll give it to the school nurse. Let the school nurse administrate it. Nope. School nurse can't do it. And then she'd be handling a federally prohibited product. All right, well then the parents themselves will drive to the school every day at lunch to give this girl her medicine. Nope, can't have that because the school is a drug-free school zone and it's federally legal, so we can't have the medical cannabis at school. And the judge ruled in January and again on appeal in August that the Maple Shade School District are in a legal bind. If they allow the nurse to administer the drug, they would violate state law banning drug use in school zones and federal law that deems pot possession a crime, according to the report at newjersey.com. And then Tuesday, it was an emergency motion that this is his third denial, right? The emergency motion to allow the wife to come to the school and administer the cannabis oil during lunchtime. And she is the registered caregiver. And she has, quote, the ability to assert an affirmative defense against charges of possession or distribution of medical marijuana, even on school grounds. This is according to the lawyer who just denied the emergency motion. Back in August, when he denied their second appeal, he said she has the affirmative defense. So the school's excuse that, there would be possession on school grounds doesn't fly. Both the mom and the daughter would be protected with an affirmative defense. But see, that's part of the problem, folks, is that medical marijuana doesn't go far enough. Medical marijuana is merely an affirmative defense to a crime you're assumed to be committing. Let's makes this perfectly clear to people, because I have so many people in these medical marijuana states, when legalization is brought up, they're like, it's not good enough legalization. We got medical. Why should we move? Medical marijuana does not mean you're legal if you're a patient. It means we won't prosecute you if you're a patient. It means we might not arrest you if you're a patient. Some places have no protection from arrest and merely an affirmative defense. That's what the Washington state law was. You could show the doctor your card, or you could show the cop your recommendation, and it didn't matter. The cop could still arrest you. You had to show it to the judge. Well, after the time you've been arrested, lost your job for being in jail because you couldn't come up with bail, or lost the money for trying to come up with the bail, and then the time it takes you to get to court, that's a whole lot of hassle to have to go through. You're not legal under medical marijuana, and neither is little Jenny Barber in New Jersey. So because it's technically not legal, because it's still a contraband substance no matter who has it, the judge is issuing the correct decisions in these cases. Let's not be mad at the judge. The judge's job is to read the law and interpret it and make sure that it's being followed to the letter, and it is. Until New Jersey and any other state legalizes it, makes it legal, ends the contraband nature of the product itself, then you're not legal. And that's why I fight so hard for legalization, because until it's legal in every state, some little girl like Jenny Barber's going to suffer.
What are you people? On dope?
Well, it's 420 in Denver, Colorado, where the folks in Colorado are enjoying this one-day tax holiday. No taxes on weed in Colorado today, so get your Christmas shopping done early. And if you miss the tax holiday for one day in Colorado, come over here to Oregon starting October 1st. We got 3 months of tax-free weed coming up.
The Russ Belville Show, providing dictionaries to drug czars since 2009.
The Fingerboard Extension has fretted instruments to enhance your creativity. It has new and used guitars and banjos from beginning to high class. The Fingerboard Extension has National Resophonic, Husson Dalton, Larrabee, Heritage and Recording King guitars, and Mike Ramsey, Wildwood, Gold Tone, and Recording King banjos. The Fingerboard Extension also has drum stuff, used gear, and parts. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension, downtown Corvallis, Oregon at 120 Northwest 2nd, or check out the inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com and reverb.com. You're listening to 420 Radio. Listen Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific for Century of Lies, podcasting at drugtruth.net. Pioneering marijuana radio activist Dean Becker continues his illustrious career interviewing reform luminaries on his Century of Lies and cultural baggage shows from Pacifica's KPFT in Houston. Check our online listings for Century of Lies with Dean Becker from drugtruth.net. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
All right, folks, not so much data mining today as science mining, but I don't have a nice intro for science. Maybe I will one of these days. But I got to tell you, this is a headline that totally caught my attention because I'm a big fan of this show on the USA Network called Mr. Robot. I won't try to tell you about the show. I mean, it's pretty complex, a little Fight Clubby in places. But anyway, there's a throwaway plot point in the show. And it has to do with the fact that our main character, the protagonist, is involved with this hacker group, this underground hacker group. It's supposed to be kind of like anonymous, right? They even have, instead of a Guy Fawkes mask, they have the Monopoly Man mask. It's very allegorical. But anyway, in this hacker group, there's one man, African-American man, kind of tall and skinny, who's one of the genius geeks, right? It's never really clear what exactly he does. But they have a falling out. And the African-American genius geek dude goes off and does his own thing. Later in the show, our protagonist catches up with him, and he catches up with him in this little, rundown kind of lab where there's a few like marijuana seedlings in the background. And I'm watching the show going, oh, interesting, marijuana seedlings, right? And so the plot is kind of like this guy, after he fell out with the hacker group, is now taken to the weed business, the illegal weed business. And he's got some petri dishes and some beakers and such. And the little throwaway point is when the protagonist asks him, what are you doing? He says, I've figured out a way to genetically engineer yeast to produce THC. Instead of having to wait 9 weeks for a harvest, I can harvest in 36 hours. And when I saw that on TV, I'm like, holy shit, that's genius. That's a brilliant idea. Well, folks, art imitates life. This is from The Inquisitor, and I think I found it off of I Fucking Love Science's Facebook page. Scientists modify yeast to produce engineered marijuana. That's right, folks. While there's been synthetic THC for a long time and we've got medical marijuana all over, this breakthrough is a yeast that produces THC. Kevin Chen from the company Hyacinth Bio said, quote, "This is something that could literally change the lives of millions of people." Wow, exactly. So all these growers out there that are all excited about the green rush, everybody that's talking about how an oligopoly or a cartel is going to control all the weed profits, not for long. Not for long if we can manufacture THC out of yeast. According to the story, this engineered brand of yeast has to be fed cannabigerolic acid, there we go, which is a precursor to THC and cannabidiol. And this is not the first drug to be produced from genetically engineered yeast. Researchers in Berkeley figured out how to make homemade heroin from a sugar-fed yeast and an enzyme found in poppies. Now, it's still in the early development stages yet, right? Canada University of British Columbia adjunct professor Jonathan Page said marijuana is still the best source for THC and CBD because basically the yeast process isn't that simple yet. You get 30% THC by dry weight off of your modern marijuana strains, right? So like if you get a plant that weighs a kilogram, right, you're going to get 300 grams of THC out of it. And they say that's still a far more efficient process than the synthetic THC or this yeast THC. But this will continue to be developed and it will get more production and get cheaper as time goes on. Now, it will lack, of course, the terpenes that we know that are in cannabis, and it will lack that that entourage effect that we know is so beneficial from plant-based cannabis. So I don't see this as a complete replacement for medical marijuana or deriving THC and CBD from plants for that matter. But I do see it as a possibility for the recreational market where folks a lot of times are just looking to get high. And if you can give them a THC CBD combo that gets them high, they may not care too much about all the other terpenes and everything. And especially if that yeast-derived THC product ends up being so much cheaper than the plant-based product. We may end up in a situation where the GMO yeast-bred THC is our McDonald's of pot, right? Everybody worried about the Walmartization and the McDonaldization of weed. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what happens. These big corporations start mass producing GMO THC yeast, and then the flower-based THC, the typical bud, that becomes the Ruth Chris's Steakhouse, right? You can get your McDonald's THC yeast, or you can get your Ruth's Chris fine manicured buds. I'm excited about this discovery, and I think it bodes well for our community. I really do. The more that can be produced and the more use it gets, the harder it is to prohibit in all of its forms. And it will be hard to tell THC yeast from plant, or THC from yeast versus THC from plants if you're a cop. It's happening so fast these days, folks. The momentum is rolling downhill now. The snowball is getting bigger and bigger. We've unleashed marijuana, and now the economy wants it, science wants it, medicine wants it, recreation wants it, entertainment wants it. We are winning. All right, when we come back, we got Doug Fine in our Hump Day update. Get your questions ready. I'll check out the chat room.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Belville Show, where the truth about marijuana gets more than a minute to speak.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Drum roll, please! That's your cue. Drum roll, please! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
At midnight, July 1st, 2015, adult marijuana prohibition came to an end in Oregon. Immediately, over 400,000 adults who consume cannabis responsibly were no longer criminals. This is what freedom sounds like. Brought to you by Portland Normal. Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome. Marijuana legalization also ushers in the return of the American hemp industry. Get the latest news from the author of Hempbound and Too High to Fail, Doug Fine, in our Hemp Day Hump Day update.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Middle of the week, time for us to learn all about the wide world of industrial hemp, and there's no one better to tell us than our guest, Doug Fine. How you doing, Doug?
Lovely. Thank you, Russ. Here at harvest season, life is good.
Where are you right now?
I'm actually at home. My harvest season here in New Mexico, thanks to our governor vetoing our hemp bill this year that our divided legislature passed. Some of the wording I helped with. Inexplicable, the word coming out of the Capitol is it was a personal feud with some of the sponsors, and that she'll be different when we come next year. But here on the ranch, my goats are screaming for their expensive imported hemp protein instead of that which I could grow here myself.
Yeah, unfortunately. But hopefully we've got some good news about hemp somewhere in the nation. What can you tell us?
Oh, yeah. It's mostly good news. It's harvest season. It's starting. I'm going to be in a whole bunch of states over the next couple of weeks. The funnest part for me is learning the agronomic and agricultural side. Journalistically, I mean, that it's all very interesting to sort of watch how the industry develops and what are the apps and then exponential growth, double-digit growth across North America, the bullishness the world over, but getting into the fields and seeing, a hand harvest in one state, a combine harvest in another state, different cultivars, how they're performing in different climates. It's very exciting. Also, I think since we last spoke, this was just before the congressional recess, the U.S. House overwhelmingly bipartisan passed for the second year running a prohibition of federal agencies interfering with state hemp program seed imports. So a lot of good news.
Excellent, excellent. Now, we got some questions from our chat room and a quick update just to let you know. One of our chatters out there is Speed Limit, Michael Hughes out in Bend, Oregon, who says his high desert hemp farm has their biggest hemp plants are nearly 15 feet tall and 8 feet wide and just started to flower. Looks like they're breeding them for some CBD.
That is fantastic. If he's part of the state home program, one of the dozen or so folks who did get their applications in Oregon, that is really, really good news. If he's listening now, you can go to my website. If I'd plan to hit the contact button, I'd love to see photos and potentially plan a farm visit. There will be Oregon farm visits coming up here soon. As far as other news out of Oregon, political news since we last spoke, the state agriculture department pressed the pause button on issuing new permits. The timing of it was good, and in that it's late in the season, and for conventional planters, there's all kinds of, as everybody knows, light deprivation and year-round industry that needs to be done. So it's not ideal, but at least it was late in the season after most people who were going to be planting for this year already got their permits in. The reason ostensibly is there's been a couple of reasons I've heard from different folks involved in the process. One is discussions about changing the permitting process from a 3-year to an annual. And other issues include the fact that the applications for which hemp is proving to be beneficial are so broad and so wide that the state needs to catch up with things like that, like growing for cannabinoid or nutraceutical extracts versus the traditional things we think of as older school hemp applications, and cutting edge nanotechnology stuff on the fiber side, hemp fiber batteries, hemp for energy, making Oregon and humanity energy independent. So I'm confident, especially now that we see models that are working in other states, including other states that I've been active in, where there's been no problems from federal authorities, from state authorities, smooth sailing all along, private farmers growing lots of acreage. I'm confident that the discussion now in this semi-off season will result in a successful 2016 season for Oregon hemp farmers, including those that didn't get in this year and want to apply to under whatever the new program rules will be for next year.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks for updating on that. And then we have a question in the chat room about hemp farms in Tennessee. Has there been any hemp farm? Have you been to any hemp farms in Tennessee? And is Tennessee licensing individual hemp farmers?
Yes, all these different individual states' stories are so remarkable. The stories of perseverance. I mean, you could pick just about any of the 26 now states that can grow under the federal, research legalization under the Farm Bill of 2014, Section 7606. And Tennessee's story was incredible. It was a nail biter. I'll find out more about this soon because I am going to the region here very soon. But the way that it was explained to me by folks and farmers I know there is that for whatever reason, whoever was handling the federal side of the approval process there, it was a last-minute nail-biter. The state was on board, the farmers were on board, everybody was ready and poised, but there was a delay in getting the federal approval so that you have that, completely unambiguously legal and appropriate cultivation that the state that's really leading in that way, Kentucky, has. And so this Kentucky model works. You'd think right next door it would be a piece of cake. It would probably be the same federal agency people handling Tennessee as Kentucky, but evidently not. And they just at the last minute, right before planting had to happen, got everything approved so that they could get their seed in. And from what I understand, some of their farms, they got a lot of acreage in, really impressive first year, and some of their farms are among the bigger in the U.S. that are grown this year. Again, in a few weeks, probably by our next Hemp Day, I will have stats on that. And it's not really all about the acreage, but the reason why sizable acreage matters, it's not any more important than somebody that grows 10 acres because the amount, for instance, Dr. Bronner soap, it's less than 1% hemp oil it's mostly olive oil soap, right? And so you can do a lot as a small and growing company, especially under this research phase on small acreage. But there's a lot of reasons why large acreage farming is important. And for me, the most important one is energy, biomass energy. We're ready to get off fossil fuels through domestic hemp. So yeah, Tennessee was hot this year. I'm really proud of it, and I'm excited to see their fields.
Excellent. Good news there. And when it comes to these states trying to get hemp crops into the ground, of course, they need to have seed. And apparently Oregon's got some problems getting seeds for next year. And how is the seed situation shaping up for these states?
Well, this is why I think in Oregon's case, I'll tell the big picture sort of seed story where we are now. But in Oregon's case, that's why I think that this rediscussion with the good folks at the Oregon Department of Agriculture is going to prove fruitful, because the problem this year, to the extent that there was a problem, Oregon had one of the best first years for modern programs of any state. It's impressive. I just got an email of another beautiful farm growing, and I know all over the state they were successful hemp farming this year under the program. But because Oregon's Department of Agriculture doesn't have the from-the-top cheerleading leadership that a state like Kentucky does, and every interview I conduct in Kentucky, as I've been there many times and have been involved in projects there and continue to be, every time the state agriculture people will say, wow, when you say, wow, it's unbelievable, look at all these processors, 99 projects and farming projects, amazing. They say, yeah, that's because our commissioner likes hemp. And we don't have that. We don't have an agriculture commissioner in Oregon that loves hemp. And so it's tooth and nail, but hemp can't be kept down. It's too important to the state, to the state's economy, to the state's soil, to the state's future, and to the state's farmers. And so people aren't taking no for an answer, which similarly happened in Colorado. And after a while, their state ag department is caught up and now kind of is developing a research and program that allows for that seed importation of under federal approval. That was no problem for a project I was involved with in Kentucky. It's going to be no problem for farmers in Colorado and elsewhere, and hopefully Tennessee and others in the near future. And then let us pray for Oregon as well. What it comes down to is federal agencies like the DEA want to know that there's an MOU between farmers and either a state ag department and an institution of higher learning. And Oregon's officialdom in that level wasn't able to do that this year. We got pretty far, but not to that level of MOU. So hopefully that's what will happen next year. Now, bigger picture, as I mentioned, the federal law now, law of the land, that prohibiting interference with state hemp programs on importation of seeds is such that it's a semi-don't ask, don't tell situation. I don't like it. I'm a kind of guy who thinks everything should be T's crossed, I's dotted. Let's get to full federal legalization, stop this research, get beyond this research phase, even though Kentucky is successfully using sales and marketing research as legitimate research, allowing hundreds of acres to be grown and sold under sales and marketing research. And I think Oregon and other states should implement that. It doesn't bother the feds at all. They're still issuing permits to allow the seeds to be imported. So that said, seed is getting brought in anyway in many states, and now there's a growing domestic supply. It's not going to be all smooth sailing for anyone next year who doesn't already have a good seed supply, because it was another not great seed year for production in both Canada and Europe. So it's going to be partly a supply issue again. But again, I'm confident that nothing will keep the industry down, and it's going to continue growing.
Yeah, we definitely need the hemp industry. And I'm like you. I think the laws of supply and demand, once we've released hemp into the wild, so to speak, I mean, it's just inevitable that we're going to have better laws and more access to this fine product. Now, with the minute that we've got left, Doug, can you give us some rundown on where you're going to be over the next few weeks in case people want to catch up with you at one of your events?
Thanks for that. Yeah, next couple of weeks I'm going to be doing a lot of journalism at the harvest, but there are some events coming up. I think I'm going to be in Nebraska October 3rd or so. I will be in Santa Fe in November. There's looks like I'll be at the Emerald Cup in Northern California in December. All this will be up soon on my events page at dougfine.com, and into the spring, Arizona, Fort Collins, Colorado, and elsewhere. So thanks for asking. But meanwhile, for me, it's about learning how to harvest hemp. That's what my life looks like for the next couple of weeks.
All right. And of course, all the different ways that hemp can be harvested, all the different things that it can produce. There's so much variety that has yet to be explored in the world of industrial hemp. Every other Wednesday, we visit with Doug Fine, author of Hempbound and Too High to Fail, to get our Hemp Day Hump Day update. Great update, Doug. Thanks for calling in, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Russ.
All right. And give my best to Taylor Swift and the rest of the goats. All right, folks, stay tuned. We're going to have an anti-drug public service announcement of the day, followed by a radical rant. Why the reverence for the illegal weed dealers? Probably piss some people off with this one. Stay tuned.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter. In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
If you have teenagers, I'm asking you to have a very difficult talk with them. Not about sex. For a lot of us, that would be easy compared to drugs. Drugs like cocaine and crack. But you must talk to them about drugs. If you don't talk about it, if you don't fight it, why should they? The idea of your kids using cocaine or crack ought to scare you to death. So please, learn about it and talk about it.
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org.
420 Radio is brought to you by Sacred Serum, who is focused on creating elegant and sophisticated cannabis solutions through its line of dispensers and vaporizers that come preloaded with the world's finest cannabis concentrate. Sacred Serum's concentrate is made on pharmaceutical-grade supercritical CO2 extraction machines that use absolutely no butane or other toxic chemicals. The Vesica, the company's innovative new way to dab and frost, is now available in dispensaries across California. Sacred Serum, elegance and sophistication concentrated.
420 Radio is 24-hour marijuana legalization radio.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make them.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
And one major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant.
As I mentioned before, I went rounds today with the Stoners Against Legalization, who are hell-bent on continuing marijuana prohibition in the state of Ohio for at least another year. For those of you that might be behind, Ohio has marijuana legalization on the ballot in 2015, but some people are upset about it because that legalization comes with a cost, and that cost is there will only be 10 commercial growers, and those 10 commercial growers have already been spoken for. They are the 10 groups that have invested in the campaign. Now, this has pissed off a lot of people. And I get to hear from them on Twitter and Facebook all day. And they're all pissed off because they feel like, oh my God, we're selling out. We're giving away the marijuana industry. We're screwing over the growers, is what I kept hearing. To which I have to wonder, why is that such a problem? Now, maybe it's just my personal experience, but the growers I've known, the dealers I've known, the weed dealers I've known, don't really deserve that much consideration. I don't understand this default reverence for the marijuana grower as if they're some kind of freedom fighter, right? That's the way it's usually portrayed. God bless the growers. They kept us in weed all these years when it was illegal. They gave, they sacrificed. Well, yes. And they made a hell of a profit for doing so. See, my problem with all of this is because I'm a marijuana consumer. And when it comes to marijuana arrests, 7 out of 8 arrests in this country are marijuana consumers, not growers. The 1 out of 8 who do get arrested for growing and dealing, at least they made money for their risk. At least they were able to charge $300 an ounce, give shitty customer service, have no sort of selection, shorting your bag, spraying the weed with Eagle 20, and making you listen to their shitty band tape and pretend that you like the guy just because you want to buy some weed. I'm supposed to be upset that that guy can't take his illegal business legit. I'm supposed to be upset about that guy. Now, I've known many different levels of dealers and growers. And to me, I've got kind of a magic rule of thumb, and that is the farther away you get from the grow, the blacker the market gets. Some people grow some weed so that they can have some weed. Absolutely no moral qualms about that. You're taking the risk to grow weed for your own personal consumption. If you get caught, you do the time. If you don't get caught, you got some weed. No moral problems there. The next level is the guy who grows some weed, right? And then deals a little bit of it to his friends, friend prices, so that he can recoup some of the money that he spends on buying the lights and the fertilizer and the Eagle 20 and whatever the hell else he's putting on it, right? But those friend prices somehow never seem to work out to what the production cost was. They never seem to work out to what it would be to recoup the costs without profit. I've spoken to many experts in marijuana growing, Mark Emery for one, and a whole bunch of others that'll remain anonymous because some of them are still illegal. And every one of them tells me that even under the worst circumstances, growing marijuana indoors under full prohibition, it costs between $12 and $25 an ounce to grow. So what the hell kind of friend price is it when it costs you $25 to grow that ounce and you're selling it to someone to $300 who has no other choice but to spend that $300 because prohibition prevents him from comparison shopping? These people that are complaining about a 10 grower cartel monopoly, that would be 9 more growers than most cannabis consumers have right now. Most cannabis consumers have their guy, and that's it. And so these guys that are growing weed illegally want to take on the mantle of some sort of moral freedom fighter, when in fact what they are is prohibition profiteers, making profit off the misery that befalls the 7 out of 8 cannabis consumers who are the ones who are more likely to get arrested. And again, keep in mind, more likely to be black. So when I hear these people saying, oh, well, this isn't good enough, we can wait for another legalization, something better is coming around, I think your privilege is showing a little bit. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Now, if you were a marijuana grower who was growing weed and then you were selling it at $100 an ounce, doing what you could to undercut the Mexican cartels, doing what you could to undercut and bring down the price for everyone else, and then taking some of those profits and donating it to Drug Policy Alliance or Marijuana Policy Project or NORML, then we don't have an issue. I'm painting with a broad brush here, so if the shoe doesn't fit, don't try it on, okay? Some of you growers are good people. I sound like Trump now, don't I? Some of you growers are good people. Some of you guys have been doing it the right way. Some of you have been cultivating altruistically for patients. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your typical black market grower who just found it far easier to sleep in till noon, tend a closet in his house, and take advantage of criminal prohibition to be able to price gouge consumers That's the weed dealers and growers I know. So I'm not too upset that they don't get to participate in this new legal market. The times that I lived in the black market state of Idaho, this deeply red state of Idaho, the state that doesn't have 100-gram decrim like Ohio does, the state where merely having metabolites in your system is a 3-month misdemeanor. Yeah, that's where I come from. That's my perspective on this. And it's my experience of having to call around town, call, trying to find a bag of weed. And when you finally find a bag of weed, having to go to some place, some sketchy place you don't want to be in, to visit with some guy you don't like, to wait 2 hours until he finally gets around to bringing the weed around, and your 28-gram bag is 26 grams, and it's got stems in it. And I'm supposed to be upset that guy's cut out. I just don't get it. And add to this, not all those growers are such nice guys. Some of those growers use threats and intimidation and coercion and weapons to defend their profits. And keep in mind, some of those growers were the people that opposed Proposition 19 in California and condemned Californians to another 6 years of prohibition. Some of those growers were the ones that were funding No on I-502. And had they been successful, Washington State would have faced at least another 2 years of 5,000 arrests per year. Every time legalization comes up, the only people I can find who smoke pot that put money against it, I shouldn't say only. Some of you are just pot smokers who are idiots, but mostly it's people with a grow tie. Mostly it's people that are terrified that professional, capitalized businesses will be able to produce marijuana in bulk at better quality, better selection, and better price than the guy with the grow tent in his house who sleeps till noon, pays no taxes, who abides by no regulations for purity or quality, who will lie to your face about what strain you're buying or what weight it is. Why am I supposed to have sympathy for those people? Oh, well, Russ, if they never would have grew, well, you never would have had marijuana. Fair enough, but it's not like they did it for free. They made plenty of profit on it while I was busting my hump in an 8-to-5 job working in a cubicle that I hated, getting 30% of my money taken out for taxes. While this guy sitting at home making easy bank, tending some houseplants. That's my problem with this. And you're telling me that with the opportunity to have cops no longer fuck with you over the smell of weed, to be able to possess an ounce of it in public, to be able to possess a half pound of it at home, to be able to grow 4 plants at home, to completely kill probable cause, to eliminate the use of drug-sniffing dogs, to institute shops that are secure with lots of selection and good prices on weed, and the thousands of jobs that will create, and the millions of tax revenue that will bring in, I'm supposed to reject that because not the right guys are getting rich? Here's some news for you No on Issue 3 people in Ohio. Even if you had open grow licensing, how many would be enough for you to accept it? If those 10 licenses weren't already called for, if they were open bid, would you accept it? No. You'd say 10 licenses isn't enough. You'd want 200, and some of you would say, no, that's not enough. And then there'd be an application fee of $5,000, and you'd say, oh no, that's too high. And then there'd be regulations and inspections you'd have to follow, and then you'd say, oh no, that's too arduous. There's always some fucking excuse for stoners against legalization to keep me a criminal, and I will not accept that. Anybody who decides that I should remain a criminal is a prohibitionist, I will fight them with my last dying breath. That's all, folks. Take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!